How are immigration and disasters of hurricanes correlated? No, you're looking at one aspect of how climate change and the once in a lifetime like weather events like climate change created catastrophes occur in America, but you're failing to consider that when this happens in like Mexico, it's even more devastating. But beyond that, climate change also causes drought in a lot of places, especially in Latin America. Not only do they not have enough money to harden their infrastructure against this sort of thing when this kind of devastation occurs and it completely collapses entire ecologies, but beyond that, you have climate refugees. You have people that can no longer work the land because the land is no longer tenable. So what do? They migrate. They migrate further north. So you have climate refugees, right? You have climate refugees that are coming to America because like at least there's still land that you can work on and make money on. So that's how millions of people are displaced, and America knows that like it's going to happen more and more. It's kind of like the classic Chevron, Exxon Mobil having full knowledge of the carbon emissions causing anthropogenic climate change and global warming in general, and like refusing to do anything about it. And as a matter of fact, having that full knowledge and then only using that knowledge to create PR structures against it so that you can create an environment where like 30 to 40% of the entire nation doesn't even believe it's real, right? That's what they did since the 80s. They were like, oh shit, this is going to be a problem in the future. So let's make sure that it doesn't become a problem for us and our bottom line by creating an entire system in media to just lie to the American public and to say that it's like bullshit. And that is one of the negative consequences of this reality, because you're seeing biblical levels of destruction, okay? You're watching biblical levels of destruction, and what are some Americans saying about it? How are some people reckoning with this reality? How are some people dealing with this reality? They're dealing with it by blaming like weather machines or something. And it's no different than mass shootings, okay? Here's why it's no different than mass shootings. Mass shootings are not a natural disaster, but we analyze it like it's a natural disaster. Why? Because we are completely captive to corporate interests in that regard. Gun manufacturers make too much money for us to ever actually deal with the gun violence that happens in this country. So in that situation, if you are going to refuse to see the reality of the matter, like at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you're refusing to see that, if you're refusing to reckon with that reality, then, you know, you're probably going to get hit with the 3-minute ad break instead of defending yourself against that ad break by subscribing. Last day of September, by the way, for $4 or for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub if you're lucky. Okay, here's the 3-minute ad break now. Listen. You have to understand something. Okay. All jokes aside, 3-minute ad break, blah, blah, blah. What I'm trying to explain here is this. If you are refusing to reckon with the reality in front of you, you are going to look for alternative realities as to why things are happening. And that's why there are so many conspiratorial psychopaths out there. Okay. That's my point. My point is there are so many conspiracy brained losers out there because they've been duped into refusing to acknowledge what the truth is. Okay. We're so far removed from that. And it's the same principle behind gun violence as well, which we also analyze like it's a naturally occurring phenomenon. We're like, oh, do not look to the actual problem, which is guns. Okay. Mass arsenal of weapons that are readily available to the public. More guns than there are people, but God forbid you analyze it with the actual root cause of the problem. No, we got to desperately cling on to anything and everything we can. Oh, it's got to be door control. We got to give more guns to the teachers. We got to do this. We got to do that. And that's why so many people at this point, now that they've exhausted all other options, whenever mass shootings occur, they now go, oh, it's because the shooter is trans. I've imagined that the shooter is trans and trans people are doing these mass shootings. Or, this is a psyop. This is a government psyop. They actually are doing this because they want to do gun control, which never happens, by the way. Worst psyop of all time, right? That's it. That's why people hyper focus on like insane shit. This happened in Hawaii too. Oh, it must be like space lasers that did the fires. It cannot be that the brush is just simply drier than it has ever been. It cannot be like full-blown ecological collapse that caused massive wildfires. It's got to be space lasers. Look at the blue cars. The blue cars didn't light on fire. Like, we are purposely making our population dumber and dumber and dumber because it's like easier to control and manipulate in some ways, but also simultaneously, this is not tenable. This is not sustainable. Okay. I don't know how else to describe it. And it's so up in every way, shape, and form. Like the way we analyze the situation is so messed up. Here, this is a Matt Christman quote that it talks about it. Okay, these guys that marched in Charlottesville, these are the people who are aware of the unspoken premise of the sort of zombie neoliberalism that we're living in, which is that we're coming to a point where there's going to be ecological catastrophe, and that it's going to require either massive redistribution of the ill-gotten gains of the first world or genocide. And these are the first people who have basically said, well, if that's the choice, then I choose genocide. And they're getting everyone else ready intellectually and emotionally for why that's going to be okay when it happens, why they are not really people. When we're putting all this money into more walls and drones and bombs and guns to keep them away so that we can watch them die with clear consciences, it's because we have been loaded with the ideology that these guys are now starting to express publicly. On the other side of them, we have people who are saying in full voice, no, we have the resource to save everybody, to give everybody a decent and worthwhile existence, and that is what we want. And that is the fucking real difference between these two. And you can tell that to the next asshole who tells you that they're actually two sides of the same coin. We are the people who say we have the money, we have the capacity, we have a surplus of food. We are the people who can save everybody else. We just choose not to. And the problem with neoliberalism and the problem with like the Democratic Party's capitulation to right-wing framing on issues is that they are also slaves of the same master, the master of capital. Okay, they are still deeply, they have a deeply vested interest in maintaining this corporate oligopoly, this corporate oligarchy. So they have to make some messages, like messaging differences between the Republican Party. But ultimately, that's why every in 4 years, you see them bouldering towards more and more right-wing framing on these issues. Now, I want to dive into this a little bit further. In this past month alone, there have been so many issues that that a competent Democratic Party would literally be messaging around over and over again to a degree where this would not even be a close race at all. We had a mass shooting. That's a gun control issue. The Democrats could have messaged around it. We forgot about the mass shooting already. Like it literally happened like what, a month ago, 2 months ago? Nothing. No competent conversation, no competent Democratic leadership on that front at all. What do? We're like, yeah, guns are bad. We move on. Okay. A mass shooting happened. And the Democrats didn't even message around it, okay? Another thing, Republicans insanely right-wing framing on immigration. They went so above and beyond that it was gross to the average person, as I told you this would happen with the Haitians are eating dogs and cats nonsense. That's another issue that the Republicans have completely gotten out of control on with their messaging. A competent Democratic Party should have made mincemeat out of that, okay? A competent counterbalance to that kind of unrestricted fascist communication is supposed to sit there and say, do you hear what this fucking person is saying? They're saying your neighbors are eating cats and dogs. They're being like unrestricted, unfettered racism, okay? White supremacy through and through. Nothing. No statements whatsoever to the humanity of these Haitian migrants that are literally not even undocumented. They are documented immigrants, and their status, these guys on the right want to revoke. They want to take that away. Okay. So that's another one. And last but not least, or two other issues. Okay. Foreign policy, neocon foreign policy back in the day was supposed to be the Republicans that pushed, more war, more devastation, more destruction, more money to the military. Israel has expanded on its NSEG and is now doing to Lebanon what it was doing to Gaza. Nothing from the Democratic Party except for full-blown unconditional support to Israel. Okay. And last but not least, now we also have ecological disasters as a direct consequence of climate change. And the counterbalance to the Republican Party is also running the drill, baby, drill attitude. Think about that. Those are 4 key issues: domestic policy and foreign policy. 4 key issues that the Democrats are supposed to literally be on the opposing side on. And yet when you look at their policy prescriptions, their answers are no different than the Republican Party. Their answers are like maybe lighter, maybe a little bit more understanding. This is a terrifying prospect for the future of the United States of America. Okay. Their key issues to a crazy left person. Yeah, dude, the entire town of Asheville, North Carolina is underwater. And that's just a key issue to a crazy left person. A crazy left person. If you have to be a crazy left person to be like, hey, I find it unconscionable that our key ally in the Middle East is like pummeling every country in the region with American made bombs with American tax dollars that could be going elsewhere to, I don't know, maybe harden your infrastructure ahead of time because fucking ecological disaster is imminent. I don't know. I don't know what to say about like the average opinion of the average person then. Or these are key issues to a crazy left person. Key issues such as not going on a national stage and greatly accelerating the right-wing framing, the white nativist framing, built on top of a house of lies, built on it's not even shaky foundation, okay? It's not a shaky foundation. It's just abject lies, right? Like the idea that undocumented migrants are responsible for more crime than natural-born U.S. citizens. That's not correct. It's just incorrect. These aren't even undocumented immigrants, by the way. These are documented immigrants too, but they are being treated as though they are undocumented. Meanwhile, this is the lib talking point, by the way. Anyone that's upset about Biden and Harris's response are getting hit with not their fault. They offered aid to then say should have voted better. Yeah, that's insane, man. That's insane. Believing that climate change is real when multiple towns are completely underwater is such a psychotic way of looking at the situation. I don't even know how to deal with it. And that is how we arrive at the viral tweet blaming the flooding in North Carolina on government weather manipulation. Okay? Because you are desperately avoiding the truth. You don't want to see the truth. You don't want to see the truth of the matter. You don't want to listen to scientists. You think scientists are gay and lame and lying to you. And when that happens, of course you're going to find yourself in the throes of like insanity like this. I saw this as well. FEMA said last week it faces nearly $9 billion of shortfall for Hurricane Helene recovery efforts on the same day Israel announced an $8.7 billion weapons package from the U.S. Our tax dollars are funding Israeli war crimes instead of the investments we desperately need here. Can't do it. Can't get Congress to do it. You just can't do it, you know? Meanwhile, here's another you to the police, by the way, because every single thing I talk about, the intersectionality of that violence is in full display right here. The intersectionality of misinformation, the intersectionality of that violence, all of the systems that we exist under that are openly being like, fuck you, die, you poor. Police guarding grocery stores while folks are denied the opportunity to purchase baby formula after losing everything is pretty indicative of where we are as a country. Okay, not letting people into the fucking grocery store. That's what they're using their fucking funds on. Great stuff, man. That's what we're using our local funds on. So why didn't you stock up? Why didn't anyone stock up? The store has to follow procedure from the people like you from buying everything up and then suing the store because they bought bad product. Like there are people immediately being like, nah, oh, this guy blocked me. But let's see what he's had to say. Matt Wallace. Don't worry, guys. Weather modification isn't real. It's just a coincidence that Hurricane Helene is one of the most devastating inland damage storms in history, and that hundreds of pro-Trump counties are massively being impacted during those most important elections of our lifetimes. Yeah, obviously the elites would never be evil enough to create hurricanes designed to interfere with democracy. Pay no attention to the storms. 30,000 likes. We're done. We're done. You cannot come back from this, I think.